Hey, but I'm cheap too, so I don't remember. Like $10? Is it? All right. All right. Hey guys, we're like 2 minutes till, but I want to get started because I want to do something differently with you guys that we didn't do in the first hour, just as a thought experiment. I want to read you something, but first I want to do a little close your eyes and imagine. I always hate these, but I want to make you do it because all right. Everyone close your eyes. I'm gonna give you, before you close your eyes, I'm gonna give you a couple of situations to imagine. And I want you to spend some time imagine these things in detail. So not just like picturing them generally, but imagining detail. So here we go. Close your eyes. Here we go. Here's the first one. The first one is an Eskimo village or an Inuit village. I want you to imagine what that would look like, what it would be like to walk through it, what it would smell like. What you would see, what the people would be doing, how would they be communicating with one another. Okay, next one I want you to imagine that you're in an operating room and there is a conversation among doctors going on right before an operation begins. All right, so close your eyes and imagine that. Imagine what that sounds like. Not only their voices, but all the other things that are going on. What it looks like. What are they saying to one another? What are they talking about? What does it smell like in there? Okay, now I want you to imagine the Old South. So, pre-Civil War, Old South. You're on a plantation. What are the people doing? What does that look like? How are they dressed? What are they saying to one another? What are they doing? What does it smell like? What are the sounds? What's the ambient noise there? All right, last one. I want you to imagine you're in the plane with Amelia Earhart and you're flying. All right, what does that sound like? What does it look like? What's the cockpit? Think about the instrument controls. The little meters. And what does she look like? What's she wearing? What are you wearing? What are y'all talking about as you're flying? As you look out on the horizon. All right, you open your eyes. Now, how many of you have ever been to an Eskimo village? Raise your hand. 0. Okay. How many of you have ever been in an operating room pre-operation with doctors? Okay, so we got a few of those. All right. How many of you have ever been to the Old South before the Civil War? Or close your hands. You've never been to the Old South before the Civil War. It's impossible unless you've time traveled. Stick your hand down. I don't care that your brother's a KA. Anyway, how many of you have ever flown a plane with Amelia Earhart? Oh, it's still 0. Now, here's my question. Did you have any problem imagining those things? Any problem at all? Where did those images come from? When you imagine those things, where did they come from? Some of them you had to possibly create on your own, but where those images come from? You just had them in your mind. They were your thoughts, but where they originate? You have no idea what Amelia Earhart wore when she flew, unless images have gotten in your head from somewhere. Oh man. And then, so this is a beautiful little thought experiment because what it shows you is that technology affects you. And that even affects your imagination. So when I tell you to do something that's completely your own, to create a world, and I give you just a few parameters, the first thing that you do is you reach back to images that you've seen in television or in movies. Interesting. I want to read you a quote from a guy. His name is Chuck Klosterman. He writes for, has anyone ever heard of him? He writes for GQ, Spin, Rolling Stone, Esquire. He also writes for a website some of you guys may have visited before called Grantland.com. It's a ESPN sponsored website. Now, in this quote, hold on. In this quote, he thinks that humans have existed for 130,000 years. He's not a Christian. Even if he was a Christian, obviously he's not a young earth creationist. That doesn't matter at this point. So, if you're worried about those, if you're worried about that, you got a lot bigger things to worry about. But anyway, he says this, and this is kind of a summary of what we talked about yesterday. Humans have existed for 130,000 years. The Great Train Robbery, which is like the first motion picture, all right? The Great Train Robbery was made in 1903. For roughly 129,900 years, any moving image a human saw was actually real. It was there, right in front of you. If a man in 1850 saw a train chugging toward his face, it was an actual train. For 129,900 years, we were conditioned to understand that seeing something in motion has specific meaning, but that understanding no longer exists. Today, we constantly see things, that's in quotes, that aren't actually there. Intellectually, we know that there's a difference between the Great Train Robbery and a real train. Intellectually, we know there's a difference between a living person and a Facebook profile. We know that The Sopranos and our life are different. But if there is any possible way, is there any possible way that 129,900 years of psychological evolution can be altered within the span of a single century? Is it any wonder that people feel paradoxically alienated by the mechanical devices that they love? That's wisdom right there, guys. What is he saying? He's saying this. He's saying that that technology is advancing faster than humans do. That our emotions, physically, emotionally, mentally, that for thousands of years we've become accustomed to certain things, and technology is changing that. Just think about like the Transformer movie, the newest one, which I will not see because they're all garbage. But and if you like them, sorry that you have bad taste. And but all those movies, nothing happened in those movies. Those movies are a bunch of actors, not even a bunch of actors, like a few actors running around in front of a green screen. Like, and that's it. Everything else in that movie is fake. Alright? But for years and years, when we saw things move, when humans saw things move, they were just real things. Things that weren't real were just in our head. And what I was trying to tell you yesterday, hopefully, what came through yesterday, was that technology is reaching out and it's changing us. It is having an effect on the way that we live, on the way that we view others, on the way that we view God, on the way we view ourselves. So today, I'd like to do two things. One, I'd like to talk about mobile phones specifically, or mobile phones. And I'd also like to talk about communication. And you'd be surprised how much the Bible has to say about communication. So, first, I said that we want to, today, if you're taking notes, I said I think you'd want to have a heading that says questioning technology. I think a good question to ask about any technology is, why was it invented? Why was it invented? What problem does it solve? What problem does it create? But why was this technology invented? I'll give you an example of a technology that was invented to solve no problems. It actually created a problem so that it could solve it. And that was the Snuggie. Does anyone remember the Snuggie? The Snuggie is the blanket / jacket, the janket. And now, I always love those commercials, those as seen on TV commercials, because Like, the actors on there are so, like, overacting. They're like, do you ever have this problem? And she's trying to pull the blanket up while she's watching TV, and she just throws everything everywhere. It's like, oh, this is so frustrating. He's like, get over yourself. My goodness. The remote will work from under the blanket. Every pro knows this. So will the Xbox remote. They have these huge problems. They're creating a problem, all right? Now, confession time. I own 2 Snuggies. So, my wife, I'm always cold all the time, and so my wife thought it would be a really fun gift, like a gag gift to buy. And she got 2 for 1 or whatever because it's a garbage product. But so I have 2 Snuggies. I own 2 Snuggies. She thought it was funny. I'm always cold all the time, and she thought it would be funny, and she was right. It was really funny, but. Let's take that question, like, why was the Snuggie invented? The Snuggie was invented to steal people's money because no one really needs it. But why was Snapchat invented? Let's have some participation. Who knows why Snapchat was invented? Huh? I can't hear you. For bored? For porn? Well, not exactly. Not exactly. But that's close. Why was Snapchat invented?
So girls and guys, I guess, could sext without... Yes,
sexting, which is a little different from pornography, a little bit different. But we'll go back to that. But yes, the reason, the 2 guys from California who invented Snapchat, they invented it specifically so that they could receive sext from, they used another term that's derogatory, but from women, and that the women could feel safe about sending those sexts, sext is a really hard word to pluralize, like sextus. That's just tough. XTS, that's tough. But anyway, that's why Snapchat was invented. All right? So that gives us a clue as to how Snapchat is going to affect us in our behavior. And you might think, well, I have Snapchat and I don't sext, and I would just say yet, first of all. But I would also say, well, let's talk about another app. This isn't going over. Come on. Who has ever heard of Ask FM? Has anyone ever heard of that? What does Ask FM do?
Ask people questions.
You ask people questions. Do they know who you are when you're asking? It's anonymous. But they answer with their answers can be, have you ever heard of Yik Yak? Has anyone heard of that app? Whisper, Confide, these are other. Here's some questions that you can ask on Ask FM. You can ask a question like, why is Rachel such a stupid slut? That's a real question that I pulled off Ask FM. Or you can ask a question like, why doesn't Troy go drink bleach and die? These are real questions that people just are asking on Ask FM. All right, it's terrible. But what it does is it allows you to ask questions anonymously. All right. So it allows you to basically cyberbully people, or just bully people. I don't even want to say cyberbully, just bully people without ramifications. I'm going to tell you something right now. This is the closest I'll get to legalism, all right? I'm going to tell you this. In the name of Jesus Christ, you should not have either of those apps on your phone. You should delete them immediately. They are invented for poor purposes, for evil purposes. And even if you're not using them for evil, you're going to be tempted to do that. And not only that, but they're things that you can't be monitored using. You can't be monitored by someone, and you need to be monitored. Someone needs to hold you accountable, even when you're an adult, for how you live your life online. We're going to talk about that tomorrow, but you should not have those apps on your phone. They're bad. All right? And the reason I know they're bad is, one, they were invented for bad purposes, and there's a ton of evidence. People have committed suicide because of Ask FM. That has happened. And the blood is on our hands, really. It's on our hands. Their blood. Because we promote and enjoy that kind of, we think, we want that privacy and that anonymity. I'm telling you right now, get rid of them. Do not have them on your phone. All right? Some of you are not going to like that. And you're going to be like, oh, that's like legalistic and whatever. Okay, whatever. You do what you're going to do. I've never had Snapchat on my phone, and I will never have it. You know why? Because I love my wife, and I love my wife, and I just don't need that temptation. And because no one can monitor it. No one can monitor it. And your parents need to be monitoring you online. Even if you're going to college, someone, a friend, needs to be able to tell what you've done on your phone. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But, okay, that was a little heavy, but I want to say that because it's important for us to realize that we can ask the question, why was something invented? And it will give us a clue as to how it's going to affect us both positively and negatively. Alright? Well, why were mobile phones invented? Does anyone know? A young one right here. Let's go.
So that you could communicate with someone from anywhere?
Yes, exactly. Specifically, he said so you can communicate with someone from anywhere. Specifically, they were invented so that businessmen who had to go on the road, like insurance adjusters or different people that had to go on the road, they could get in contact with their office quickly. Alright? Because before cell phones existed, you go out to like Sheboygan and to do something, and then you have to go back to your hotel or you go to a payphone and call back to the office and report what was going on. Report your sales, your orders if you were one of those guys. So they were invented so that someone could be in contact constantly with their office. A businessman or a businesswoman could be in contact with their office at all times. That's why cell phones were invented. Quick story. First person to own a cell phone in my high school. I went to a high school with 2,200 students, give or take, and I was the first person to have a cell phone. Me and two other guys. We got cell phones at the same time. Now, the reason is because our dads worked for the cell phone company. So they thought, oh, we'll just give them cell phones and then kids are going to want them. But they didn't realize I wasn't popular, so that didn't really help that much. But let me tell you about my first cell phone, too. It looked a lot like the phone you might find in an office. Like, it was a big block, and it was it was actually attached to my dash. Like, it was like affixed. And it had like an actual handset, like you would like on an office phone, like pick up with a cord and everything. And the buttons were like right there for you to, like it looked just like someone took an office phone and duct taped it to my dashboard. Like that's what it looked like. And my friends, especially the girls that I knew, were astounded that I had a phone in my car. They were absolutely flabbergasted. They're like, you mean you can call people? And I got over it very quickly because I hate being on the phone. Hate talking on the phone. If I have to leave you a voicemail, my goal is for it to be less than a second. Just start by. Like that's it. I hate it. But they were astounded, and they'd be like, "You mean you can call people?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you can call people." Like while we're driving, it's like, "Yeah, while we're driving." It's like, "Can we do it?" It's like, "Yeah, we can do it if you want." So they would get up and they'd call and be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm calling you from Kurt's car," and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's cool." And then you don't have anything else to say. And it was like, "Yeah, the novelty of it wears off pretty quickly." But I just remember how amazing people thought it was that I had a cell phone, and then all of a sudden everyone had them, and all of a sudden they weren't attached to your car, and all of a sudden they were flip phones and all these different things. And now earthquake victims in Haiti don't even have a place to live, but they still have a cell phone and a plan. The cell phones are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. All right? Literally, they are everywhere. Well, if a cell phone was invented to keep us in constant contact, here's our question. If it solves that problem, what problem does it create? What is the cost of being in constant contact? What is the cost? Does anyone want to say it? You have an idea? Yeah.
You're never truly alone.
Oh, you are never truly alone. That is absolutely correct. Now, why could never being alone be a problem? That sounds awesome. Oh, I'm never alone anymore. Why could that be a problem? Class star over here. Go ahead.
Government's monitoring you all the time.
Okay, the government is monitoring you all the time. First of all, you are not that important. The government does not care that much. You have a much higher view of the government than I do. But No, have you ever needed to be by yourself? Just for a moment? There are introverts and extroverts. And we don't really, the definition for those is kind of muddled. We think that someone who's outgoing is an extrovert. That's not really true, although sometimes it is. An extrovert is someone who derives their energy from being in a group. They don't really like being alone that much. An introvert is someone who derives their energy from being alone. So when they want to recharge their battery, they do something by themselves. And sometimes, I think all of us have a little introvert in us where sometimes we just want to be by ourselves for a minute. We just want to chill out. But you know how hard it is to be by yourself in the age of the cell phone? Did anyone's cell phone go off today when they were trying to do their devotional? Anyone's? Yeah, okay, I see some hands. I tried to go to bed last night, right after eating assembly, because obviously I'm not feeling great. And I remember laying down, and my phone was just buzzing and buzzing and buzzing. With people trying to get quote of the day, I guess. Although my Twitter is not set up to buzz like that. It was just different people texting me and different things. I couldn't get by myself, and I needed to be by myself. So just turn it off, because I needed to be alone. I needed to sleep. I needed to rest. And the price of constant contact for us is that we can't retreat. We can't escape. We're in this web. And the World Wide Web, and we're stuck there, and we can't get out. Now, why do we think we need to be in constant contact? It makes sense for a businessman to want to be able to call back to his office and report his sales. But why do you feel like you need to be in constant contact with people? What are you afraid of? What is that, or what itch are you scratching? I want to say that there's an idol in your life that constant communication probably feeds. It's either the idol of productivity, that you always have to be getting things done. This is for the chaperones in here. Got to have my cell phone with me, Got to be able to get in contact with those parents if you're a youth leader, if they need me. Got to respond to those emails. Got to send in that order of worship for Sunday. Got to be productive all the time. Can't be out of pocket. But can you really, chaperones, if I can talk to you for a second, can you not really be out of pocket? I mean, Jesus left his disciples and hung out for 40 days. You know what I mean? He could. He felt that he needed to be alone, have alone time. Maybe you guys aren't there yet. Some of you maybe are more in the school year. But maybe it's the idol of significance. That this constant communication gives you significance. That you're a YouTube star. You're YouTube famous. And that's what gives you... There are people who are like that. They're YouTube famous. I don't know what that means. But anyway. That's where you're driving your significance. Or maybe, and this is for all of you probably the case, is that you are afraid of missing out on something. What if I miss out? What if I don't have my phone with me and they text me and then they go, do something fun, and I don't get to go. And then Taylor Swift shows up and plays an impromptu concert for them. And then I'm not a part of it. And then they'll have all these Instagram pictures and I won't be there. And they'll be talking about it for the next several years. And it's all because I didn't have my phone with me. I better keep my phone with me. Even when I go to the bathroom. Even when I go to sleep, just in case. Because you're afraid that you're going to miss out on something. But here's what I want to tell you, and I said this yesterday, and I'm going to say it again today. Miss out on stuff. There's this thing called opportunity cost. I don't know if I mentioned it. But opportunity cost says this. I learned it in business school. The only thing I remember from my college degree is this. That if I take 50 cents and I spend it on a Coke, that Coke cost me 50 cents, but it also cost me everything I could ever do with those 2 quarters in the future. So it's costing me an opportunity to use those quarters later on. Well, that's the case with your time too. That if you spend an hour playing guitar, that's an hour you're not spending shooting basketball. If you spend an hour, working that KD ratio in Call of Duty, then, which is garbage anyway, I'm better than you, and I'm not. I'm really bad. You would laugh. That's an hour that you're not spending reading the Bible or doing anything else. You only have so much time and you have to spend it somewhere. And you can't be good at something unless you give up other things. Mozart was a terrible athlete. Okay? Do you think he's sweating that now? I mean, he's dead now, but you think he was sweating it? Like, that's, guys, that is the biggest idol in my students that I see, is that they are so afraid that they're going to miss out. They're so afraid they're going to have to write TFTI on someone's Instagram post. It's like a passive-aggressive way of saying, like, you didn't invite me. And the other way in which constant communication has affected us is that now it seems like nothing is real unless we share it online. Like nothing really happened unless like it used to be. The NBA slam dunk contest was awesome, and we've kind of run out of ways to dunk the basketball. But if you watch the NBA slam dunk contest now, everyone, including the NBA players who can do these dunks, who really shouldn't be that impressed with these dunks, everyone watches if you look at the crowd, everyone is watching the NBA slam dunk competition like this. They're all doing this. They're doing all the dunks, It's because we can't experience something without sharing it. That if we don't tell anyone about it, it didn't really happen. That if we don't take a picture of the plate of food before we eat it, then all of a sudden it doesn't taste as good. This is what's happening. I see it all the time. That unless it's shared online, all of a sudden it's not real. Constant communication, the ability to constantly communicate, is affecting the way that we even experience the world. The other way in which constant communication is affected is it's made our words, we have devalued words. Let's try a little experiment. 407 years ago, what is that the beginning to? They still teach history somewhere. That's awesome. All right. Yes, the Gettysburg Address. Who said that, by the way? Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln. All right, how about this one? We have nothing to fear but fear itself. Who said that? Who said it? Oh, hold on. Who said it?
Teddy Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt did not say it. Franklin Roosevelt said it. And in both classes, someone guessed Teddy Roosevelt before they guessed Franklin Roosevelt. Even though Franklin Roosevelt was a president for the longest of any president in our history. It's amazing. He's still overshadowed by his brother. Just kidding, they weren't brothers. Anyway, what about this one? Ask not what your country can do for you. But yeah, okay. Yeah, that's awesome. For those of you, for the three of you that'll listen to this online, some guy just lost it and went 8 over answering that. Well, all right. Those are 3 presidents. 1 Republican, 2 Democrats. JFK was president in the 60s. It's been some 50-some years, or almost 50 years since he was president. We've had many, many presidents in between. When was the last time the president said something in a speech that resonated like that? Who? Martin Luther King wasn't the president. They don't teach history anywhere. Yeah, actually, yes, I can. I'm from Montgomery. No one.
Bill Clinton. Yes, finding is.
No one does. Here's the thing, Barack Obama, both the Bushes, Bill Clinton, Reagan, Carter, Nixon, Ford, all those guys. All right? None of them have said this. None of them have something like this. It used to be that the president would say something like this every couple of years. They would say something that was amazing that it would become a phrase because presidential speeches matter. Now they don't matter. And you know why presidential speeches don't matter? It's not because the presidents are any worse. They're not. They're not any worse. The thing is that all of a sudden our words don't matter as much. There's just this flood of words coming into us, this flood of communication coming to us that we can't take it all in. It's like trying to take a sip, like a tea sip from a fire hose of words. And something is said today is forgotten immediately. Not tomorrow, it's forgotten in the next 5 seconds. And words, we have devalued words. We've devalued them. So that even when, no one can tell me what Barack Obama, he's gotten to do, 8 State of the Union? And I bet no one in here can tell me anything he said from those. 8! All right, surely, and he's a pretty good public speaker. I'm going to say he's pretty good public speaker. And 8, and no one can say anything. But he said there, because words have become cheap, because we've gotten so many of them, it's supply and demand. Everyone is communicating, but no one is listening. Well, you would be shocked at how much the Bible has to say about communication. In Ephesians, it says this, "Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear." If I were to take that as the standard and apply it to everything that you text and tweet and post on Facebook, what would it look like? If you were to take that standard and say the only thing you should be posting, the only thing you should be typing are things that are good for building up, what percentage of your online life would you need to delete in order to... Jesus tells us this. He says it's not the things outside of us that make us sin. It's that sin comes from the heart. What comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart, and this defiles a person. For out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false witness, slander. Jesus says our words are a window into our hearts. That what we say, what we communicate, reflects what's going on inside of us. What does your online communication, what are your Snapchats, what are your texts or tweets or whatever, what do they communicate about what's going on in your heart? Because they're communicating something. In Proverbs, it says this, Proverbs 10, "When words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent." Now, that ought to give you some pause. You might want to think for a second, maybe I shouldn't hit send. Maybe I shouldn't hit send. Maybe I shouldn't say this in a group of people. Think about how your words affect other people, because they do. "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." I wish I knew who had come up with that statement so I could build a time machine, go back in time, and beat him to death with a dictionary. Because it's words, guys. That's why that's funny. These are the jokes. Just deal with it. But, words do affect people. They affect people and sometimes we just need to not say that, even if it's funny or witty. I'll give you an example from my own life, okay? Of a time where I thought of something really funny to bring up, and I didn't bring it up because I was worried that it might adversely affect some people that were in the group. We were talking about, have you ever seen the YouTube video? It's LA, and it's a weatherman. And the weatherman, he's wishing some happy birthdays. It's like a huge TV station. And he's like, and it's like the morning show, it's like 7 a.m. and he's doing this. And he's like, and also we want to send a happy 10th birthday to Hugh Janus. We want to send a happy birthday to Hugh Janus. And then they realize that they have totally been gotten and that someone has messed with them. And that kind of stuff kills me. That is the best. That's my kind of humor. The kind where someone doesn't realize it. The person who's saying it is the last person to realize that it's a joke. I will walk up to people and I'll say, "Hey, did you hear that Brat called you an owl?" And they'll be like, "Who?" And I'll be like, "Exactly." And just walk away. That's one of my favorite things to do. But we were talking about things like that just a couple weeks ago. And one thing that came to mind was do you remember when there was a crash of a plane in San Francisco? It was a Korean airline. And these funny guys, they sent in the names of the pilots to a news station and acted like it was official, because they sounded like sort of Koreanish names, but it was names like Wee Too Low and Bang Ding Ow and things like that. And And I laughed at that. I thought, I love when people get over on the news people. It's funny, even though that's incredibly racist. I thought, well played by someone. Couldn't believe the news agency read it and didn't at least take a second look at it. We were talking about that in a big group, and I thought of that, and I was like, oh, that's something that I should bring up. That's a really funny thing. We'll all laugh about that. But then I remembered, because, thank goodness, hey, there are 2 guys in our group that are Asian. They might be offended by that. Maybe even though it's hilarious, I ought to think about how my words affect other people. Let's just pull that right back and not share it, Kurt. But do you ever think about what you say, of how it affects other people? Where words are many, transgression is not lacking. Now, I'm not trying to scare you into not communicating online. What I'm telling you is, you ought to be thinking a lot, because we actually have something to communicate. We have the words of life of Jesus Christ. This is the thing that is supposed to define our lives. What percentage of your online presence has to do with the gospel? And what percentage of it has to do with just promoting how awesome your life is, or how awesome you want people to think your life is? You should be talking more. You should be talking more about the one thing that's supposed to define you as a Christian, which is that you've been saved by the blood of Jesus Christ. We ought to be sharing the gospel more than we're talking about, even more than we're talking about the USA soccer team, as great as that is. But this is what defines our lives. We ought to be speaking the truth in love. Okay. What time do we have to get out of here? 11? 11? Alright. Last thing I want to talk about is mediated communication. What do I mean by mediated communication? Who in here has a really strong sense of self-worth and not easily embarrassed? Anyone on the front row?
Tito.
What's your name? Jonathan. Oh, where's Tito the mayor?
He's weak. Be careful.
All right, Tito. I'm going to talk to you for a second, all right? Now, if I walked up to Tito, the mayor, and I was like, thank you for standing up, that makes it better. Actually, take your sunglasses off, this will make it even better. If I was up to Tito the mayor, I was like, hey, Tito, you're a waste of human cells. You're a piece of garbage. I hate you, and I hope you get two forms of cancer, the worst 2 kind, and I hope that you die. Now he's laughing about that, but because he knows that I don't actually think that. But if I did say that to him, do you know what would happen? All right, first of all, he might beat me up, but whatever. That's beyond that. It would hurt him. It would hurt for you to hear that, for someone to say, if I were to say, Tito, you're ugly and no one's ever going to marry you, that. And you know what would happen if I did that, right? Is that not only would it affect him, but I would see it affect him. And it would affect there'd be all this communication going on, both verbal and nonverbal, all right? And I would get that response back from him, and it would hurt me. It would not feel good. All right, you can sit down, Tito. Thank you for being, you're the man. He's the mayor. Yeah. It would affect him. But you know what? If Tito and I were just friends online, I can say whatever I want about him, and I don't get that negative response back. In fact, sometimes it might even feel good to say something terrible about someone, because it's mediated communication. There's a medium. Media means between. There's something between us, either our phones or our laptops or whatever, that's communicating. And so it's like a shield. It's a safeguard, so that you can say all kinds of vile things. What I said to him is like the tip of the iceberg of what people will say to each other online. All right, that's not even that bad. All right, I've already said some things I read on Ask FM that people would say. All right, about real people that they know. But there's mediated communication. And here's the danger that we are in, is that we prefer mediated communication to unmediated communication. I can prove this to you because I'm a youth minister, so I hang out with high school students all the time, and I cannot tell you the last time that I saw 2 girls whispering to each other. I can't tell you the last time I saw it happen. It never happens anymore. Now, when I was in high school, this is a huge win for guys, because when I was in high school, all right, that was the surest way to make high school guys feel uncomfortable, which a bunch of girls start whispering to each other, and you're like, oh no, my flies are done, or I have a booger in my nose. Oh, what's going on? Ah, I'm insecure. I want in on the secret. Please let me laugh too. Like that. That's how it was. But now, like, there is a girl right here and a girl right here, and there's like 4 girls right here on the second row, and like if this girl and this girl want to communicate with each other and no one else to hear about it, they just text each other, even though like they can see each other and even touch each other. Like they'll just text because it's mediated, it's safe, it's separated. Let me tell you the difference between texting and whispering. All right, texting and whispering. All right, well, whispering is intimate. What's your name? Yeah. Edward. Like, if I were to come up to Edward and whisper a secret to him, like, one, I have to get, like, in close proximity to him. Like, I can't whisper to him from here. Like, I need to be pretty close, unless I want everyone to hear. So, like, so close that I might even, like, smell him and he smell me. Like, not necessarily in a bad way. I'm sure that Edward smells like roses, but it's, ladies. Like, and he, like, if I were to whisper in his ear, like, he would even, like, feel, like, my breath on him. Like, feel, like, actually, you ever had someone whisper in your ear, you actually feel it. And then, like, and he might even smell my breath, whether it's good or bad. Like, but what I'm trying to say is this, is if I were to whisper to Edward, which is really not that big of a deal, you've probably whispered to people before, that's kind of an intimate communication. Like, I have to be close to him, like, we're close to each other. Now, if I were to text Edward, that is like not intimate at all. That's just data that he receives on a screen and reads with no inflection, no anything. You can't tell if I'm being sarcastic. It's gotten to the point where we prefer that mediated communication to unmediated communication. Like, if we're talking about intimacy for a second, we tend to think of intimacy, we think of sex. That's the thing that we think of, all right? And like, I guess, and that's good because having sex with someone is extremely intimate as it can be. So like a 10 on the intimacy scale. Maybe a 9 or an 8.5 would be like kissing someone. And maybe like a 7 or a 6 would be like holding their hand. Or just, like a 5 would just be like physical touch. Like, but a 0 is posting on their Facebook wall. That's a 0. There's 0 intimacy there. There's none. Ladies, I just want to tell you something really quickly. No boy is ever going to fall in love with you if he can't look you in your eyes. And he's never going to be able to look you in your eyes if you're constantly like this. In fact, I got proof. Look at this. This is a couple, I snapped a creeper picture of them while I was in Chick-fil-A. This is during spring break. This is spring break. I think this is a boyfriend and girlfriend. I think they go to college, like at Troy or somewhere close to Montgomery. 2 relatively attractive individuals, although I don't condone that hat choice, but that's her thing. There's a little bit of Clinton from Clinton and Stacy in me, just a touch. I've watched too much What Not to Wear, and with my wife, and but the whole time they were sitting there, I was waiting on my food. I'm standing in line the whole time. I was able to snap like several. This was just the best one I got. Like, I'm like checking my phone. I'm just like, how you take a creeper picture. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm a stalker. I don't know. But I thought this was perfect for this because the whole time that I'm waiting on my food, they are on their phones looking at each other, and occasionally they're like, they show each other something, and they both laugh, and they just go back to looking on their phones. Like, here is someone that he may marry, all right, or that they may. They're in college, they're dating. Like, that's in the picture. That's not out of the realm of possibility. All right. Who in here is 18, by the way? Anyone? Hey, I just want to throw something out to you really quick. When my wife was 18, she was 3 years away from being married. 3 years. So some of you have just got like 3 years. Look out. That should be exciting to you. If you meet this is not a dating seminar, that's for John Stone. I've got a lot to say about that though. Anyway, They spend this time eating together and they're not even looking at each other. That doesn't bode well for them going forward. Those of you who are married in here, this does not bode well, all right? You need to be able to look in people's eyes, and not just boyfriends and girlfriends. You need to be able to look in your friends' eyes. We need to embrace unmediated communication, face-to-face communication, if only for this reason. The gospel goes forth the best way when unmediated communication. And not only that, but what we are selling as Christians is that one day Christ will glorify us and that we will have unmediated communication with God the Father. Right now, Christ is our mediator. He is our great high priest. He stands between us and God as a perfect sacrifice. But when we're glorified, like Matt is talking about in the evenings, we will have unmediated access. We will be fully known and fully loved by God. That's what we're selling. That we would know our Creator in an unmediated way, that we would be fully known. And we need to be careful that we aren't loving mediated communication more than unmediated communication. What color are your best friend's eyes? What color are your best friend's eyes? This is a question to ask yourself. What time is it? Okay, we have 1 minute. I just want to say this. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about how we live online. Like, what do we do? Like, what are some principles, some very broad principles that can guide us? All right? But for now, what I want you to see is that communication, the internet, cell phones, whatever, that it has affected your life, as we talked about yesterday. It's affecting you. And not only that, but you are constantly being drawn toward communicating with it instead of communicating in real life. And that's a danger. It's a danger. All right, let's pray. Dear God, thank you for these students and for their willingness to listen to me. And Lord, I do pray that we would think critically about how technology is affecting our lives. We are thankful for it. It's not a bad thing, Lord. We're so thankful for not getting lost because of Google Maps, or being able to reconnect with people that we knew many years ago or from many miles away. And Lord, for being to Skype with missionaries on a Sunday morning in a Sunday school class. There are all kinds of ways in which you've blessed technology and you've blessed our use of it, Lord. But Lord, sometimes even the best things become our idols, and I'm afraid that that's the case with this. And so I just pray, Lord, that you would help us to think critically so that we not worship the created thing, but rather we worship our Creator. I pray this in Christ's name and for His sake. Amen. Thank you, guys. You're dismissed to lunch.